In the last video I made a DIY buck boiler. In today's video I'm going to be using it on two deer. One of them is a muzzleloader buck that I killed, and the other one's a deadhead. Yes, it's way bigger than my buck that my buddy shot in November, but we were unfortunately unable to recover it until recently, when we were scouting a little bit. But we got two deer heads that we're going to do. I got the buck boiler full of water and heating up now, and we're going to jump into this. What a roller coaster of a season it has been. Came in downwind, it actually winded me. So here's my buck boiler. I've had water in it for about 2 or 3 minutes, and it's already starting to heat up really nicely. I can tell that by the bubbles that are starting to form on that. I'm going to go ahead and put some Dawn dish soap in here. I'm going to be pretty liberal with it. I've heard that that helps dislodge a lot of the fat and stuff that, you know, sometimes can be found on the head with these things. Just makes stuff come off easier. And over here, we've got the muzzleloader buck, and we're going to start with him because I've got the other dude that was a deadhead soaking, and as you can tell, he is a much bigger, nicer deer than the one I killed. I wish that had happened the other way around, but we're going to see if we can't take these two and get them done today. I'm going to start by removing everything off of this deer here. I've had him frozen since muzzleloader season, which was sometime in December. I forget the exact dates, but I've had this head frozen and I've had it thawing out in the yard for a couple of days, so I'm going to remove everything I can off of it, and then I'm going to put it into the buck boiler. Alright, so we got buck number one into the boiler. Taking everything off would probably be a lot easier when it was warm. I didn't know I was going to be the one doing that when I saved this thing, but moving forward I'll probably make sure I take everything off when it's warm and remove that lower jaw. I'm guessing that'll speed things up quite a bit. But it wasn't too terribly hard. It took me about 10 minutes to really strip that thing down and get it to where I could put it in here. So I'm just going to watch it for about an hour or so, and then I'll, you know, just chip away at it, take it out about every hour, and remove what I can, and then put it back in until it's done. Well, as you can see, this thing is keeping it at a perfect little simmer. It's been in there for about an hour and a half now, and the skull was frozen when I put it in, or mostly frozen, and it's already starting to cook a lot of it down and off of there. I'd say before too much longer I will be able to remove that bottom jaw, which should really speed things up. It's 4:07, so that thing's been in there about 2.5 hours. I'm going to pull it out now and try to remove maybe the lower jaw and some other stuff around it, see if we can't speed that process up. But it's at a nice, pretty good rolling boil now, just above a simmer. And I didn't want it to boil too hard because I've heard if you know, are boiling it and it's really rocking and rolling, it can damage the skull plates and stuff like that. So it's just above a simmer. That's right where I want it. We're going to take it out and remove a bunch of the gunk if we can. We've been boiling since about 1:30, something like that, and it's now just about 6 o'clock, so 5.5 hours, something like that. And this is where we're at so far. A lot of that stuff is just starting to fall off of there, so I really do think it's really close to being done. However, sun's going down. It'll probably be down in about 30 minutes, so I'll probably be finishing this dude up by headlamp light. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with this boiler. It seems to be doing pretty all right. It's holding water. It's boiling heads. That's what I wanted it to do. So we'll get this thing. All right, it's a new day. I actually stayed up pretty late working on that other head last night, but I was ultimately able to get it done. However, I did learn a few things. So, first of all, I boiled this guy too long, and the bones that sit up front here, because I boiled it for so long, just kind of came off. Now, they're not damaged. I'll be able to glue them back on there, and it'll still look okay. But I'm going to try to avoid that mistake on this guy here, because I'm doing that one for a friend. And so, with this one here, I boiled it for probably 4 or 5 hours and then went to working on it. That also made a lot of the stuff inside the head hard to get to because it wasn't pulling out in big chunks, it was pulling out in pieces. So I'm going to pull this dude out and start working on it. Alright, I took this thing out of the buck boiler for the last time, and it's actually looking pretty decent. I got a bucket over here full of Dawn dish soap, that green one, and this head stinks. It was a dead head and it's nasty, and so once it gets done, I'm going to set it in that bucket for a little while and just let it soak in clean water with some Dawn dish soap in it, and hopefully that'll take away some of the nasties. But this deer went a lot smoother. So I woke up early and put it in the buck boiler for about 2 hours, and then I came out and knocked a bunch of the big stuff off of it, which, with it being a deadhead, a lot of the nasal stuff and things and the ice and things like that were already gone. But I put it in there for 2 hours, and then I knocked a bunch of the big stuff on it. I put it in there for about another 40 minutes, and I've just got a little bit of cleaning left to do on this one. So it went way smoother. I need to boil those things a lot less moving forward. And the nose on this one is still attached, so that's awesome. But I'm going to knock the rest of the stuff off of this one and should be just about done. We are to the final step in the Euro mining process. Both these things have were cleaned this morning and they've been drying all day. And I made sure there's no debris or fat or anything like that on them. And so we're ready to whiten these things. This is what I chose to whiten them with. Salon Cure 40. It's a gel that I'm just going to paint on there. And basically I'm just going to paint it on there, which will take a while. I got a lot of nooks and crannies and crevices and stuff to get in there with. I'm going to tape the antlers, the base of the antlers off before I do that, so there's no chance that I ruin anything there. And after I do that, it's just going to be painting them and letting them dry for a day or two, and then we'll see how they turned out. All right, so last time I touched these, I actually took some of this and I just put one layer on. I painted it on. And it got them pretty white, but they're not quite where I want them to be. And I think that's because this gel has a pretty thin consistency. When I painted it on some of the spots of the skull that weren't flat, it was just kind of running straight off. And so some parts of these skulls are like super white, and some parts still need a little bit of touching up. My answer to that is, instead of buying another whitening agent, because this seemed to do good, I'm just going to thicken that gel up with some baking soda, which also kind of whitens. And after I do this round, I'm actually going to wrap them in plastic. I was reading online that when you wrap them in plastic right after you paint them, the solution doesn't dry as fast. It actually extends your whitening time, and it's supposed to get them a lot whiter a lot quicker. And then we got a nice sunny day, so after I do that and I let them sit for a couple hours, I'm going to sit them out in the sun and let them dry. We're going to jump into it. It is a couple days later, and we have a finished product. Turns out putting that baking soda inside of that Salon Care 40 was an awesome idea. It thickened it up. It only cost an extra 94 cents, and it worked like a charm. I think putting the plastic over those heads helped a lot too. Make sure, if you haven't, that you check out the muzzleloader kill video. I'll put a link to it in the description below. And make sure, if you haven't, I have a DIY video on the buck boiler I use to boil these skulls. I have a tutorial on how you can make one of your own. And then the whole cost I have in these is basically just the Salon Care 40 and some paintbrushes. So you can do this yourself for about 20 bucks. The last thing I want to talk about before we end this video is what would I do differently next time, okay? And there's three things that I think are super important to know when you're doing this process. One, have a set of needle nose pliers and a flat tip screwdriver with a bigger tip. Those are the two most invaluable tools that you can have, and they really, really helped me out. I almost didn't use anything else. Second, do not put Dawn dish soap in your boiler. I didn't see that it helped any, and it made the most nasty smell. It made it really hard to work with, those heads. And so my alternative to that is I boil in just regular clean water, and I have a bucket of soapy suds with a brush there for when I'm cleaning on those heads and I need a little extra something to get stuff off. And the third thing is, do not boil your heads very long. The method I found that works, because I boiled this guy way too long and the nose fell off, as you can see earlier in this video. The second deer, I boiled for 2 hours, I took it out and cleaned it, I put it back in for another hour, I took it out and cleaned it, and that was it. I was done. So make sure that you don't go too long when you're boiling those heads. That's pretty much it. If you like what I'm doing, make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video. Make sure you check out the muzzleloader buck video and the tutorial on how to build your buck boiler, and I will see you guys in the next one.